everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Tonight, I am paying homage to my favorite team in the NFL, the New York Football Giants, ahead of their divisional clash with the hated Philadelphia Eagles. Given the fact that this has been such a magical season for the Giants and their fans, I wanted to take a short video here to pay homage to the Giants and kind of break down how they got here and how in such a short time, General Manager Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll were able to turn this around. When I was a member of the Jordan Patrick Show, I would say roughly about 7 months ago, I did a video on what I call Giants Pride. It was actually when Joe Schoen got the job, and former coach Joe Judge was actually still the man in East Rutherford. What I'm doing tonight is I'm elaborating on what ultimately happened. I spoke about how I felt that the Giants were making the right moves, but that it was going to be an uphill battle. What the Giants have done this year, very shocking, given the cap space, given the situation that a rookie head coach and his general manager won into. And I'm going to start it. The rebirth of Giants pride. Hiring Coach Brian Daboll was actually a very ballsy move by management. For one, previous coach Joe Judge was still under contract for some big money. And a lot of people around the organization or that were covering the team felt that they were not going to part with the coach, partially given to the fact of the salary. I think that was the first move of John Mara giving his GM the power to pick his man and to do things the right way. Coach Brian Daboll has been a part of a lot of successful programs in the NFL, mainly a member of the Buffalo Bills and New England Patriots. His biggest career success prior to taking over the head coaching job for the Giants was essentially getting Josh Allen on track to be the quarterback that he is now, which is a perennial Pro Bowler and a perennial MVP candidate. Coming into the Giants' job, he had a very big task. Daniel Jones, for the first 3 years of his career, was a big question mark if his future was going to be with the Giants, if he was the franchise quarterback, if he was a guy that they regretted picking. And with the carousel of coaching and offensive coordinators, the first few years were a mixed bag. They showed a lot of potential for Jones, but the losses piled up. And I'm going to start here with the very first move that truly got Giant fans excited about the new year. Giant superfan Sam Prince actually announced this name at the NFL draft. Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. Quite frankly, probably the most exciting pick the Giants have made in terms of defense since Carl Banks and before him Lawrence Taylor. His signature play of the year undeniably was against the Washington Commanders. Leading up to that game, Lawrence Taylor addressed the team and essentially said, you guys got to show some balls. They were coming off a huge loss against the Philadelphia Eagles going into that Washington showdown. Yeah, Zappy, that's cool, man. I do recall that. Yes, I do recall. Zappy's going to be joining me a little later for another show. This was my solo ambition here on my team. But Kayvon Thibodeau has made a tremendous impact. Similar to Micah Parsons, and it's a rookie thing for sure. A lot of these rookies do not get the calls when it comes to holding. It's kind of like a rite of passage that a lot of these rookies deal with. Micah, who is a phenomenal player for Dallas, has dealt with it. Other young studs have dealt with it coming into the league. But Kayvon has given the Giants a legitimacy at defensive end, and there's a long lineage of great defensive ends, whether you're talking about Leonard Marshall, Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck, Osi Umenyiora, Jason Pierre-Paul, an excellent list of great talents that have manned down the defensive end positions in the history of the New York Giants. Giants essentially hit a home run with this pick. At 7, they took Evan Neal. Definitely a work in progress, but a kid who came out of a great program. Similar to his teammate Andrew Thomas, he's had a mixed bag, but a bit of a rough year 1. But I do feel that the Giants got it right at the tackle position. And by year 2, I think he's going to look a lot similar to his teammate, Andrew Thomas, who is a Pro Bowl talent. Another big reason why the Giants were able to turn things around so quickly. Brian Daboll and his mastery of building up young quarterbacks. And it spawns the arrival of Daniel Jones. Jones would be considered a late bloomer considering that it's year 4 and that this is a contract year to either prove it or move along. And quite frankly, I think he's done more than prove it. Most recently coming off a massive win against the Minnesota Vikings on the road, the Giants' first playoff victory since Super Bowl 46. Jones brings an element where he is incredibly dangerous because of his speed and because of his ability to get out of the pocket and run. We saw glimpses of it over the course of the last few years. But I think one of the biggest problems that many Giant fans would agree with me on previous years is that we did not have a modern coaching staff with modern offensive ideas. I think it was rather simple when we saw some of the vanilla play calling from a Jason Garrett or a Freddie Kitchens. The best Jones did prior to this year was actually his rookie year under Pat Shurmur. Giants ran the West Coast offense, and Jones had quite a year. The biggest leap this year with Daniel Jones is that he has cut down the turnovers. He led the league in fumbles coming into over the course of the past 3 years. He has really cleaned that up. In addition to just having an excellent touchdown to turnover ratio. He is literally coming off the best game of his career before they do meet the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the 1 seed. Another reason the Giants have had this resurgence. Saquon Barkley is back, folks. After a devastating knee injury in Chicago during the pandemic season, and last year being hampered with a lot of knick-knack injuries, even a freak injury in Dallas. It wasn't even during a play. It was running off the field. This was a put-up or shut-up year as well for Barkley, a prove-it year. Saquon Barkley is ranking among the top 5 running backs in pretty much every category. He is all the way back. I do believe that the interest level is one and the same with Barkley coming back to the Giants as the Giants retaining him. This was a very scrutinized pick because of how high Barkley went and the lifespans of running backs. I said when the New York Giants drafted Barkley that he was a generational talent, and he has a ceiling to be a generational talent. And I also think that there's something more important when it comes to being the face of a franchise. And quite frankly, Saquon Barkley, I believe, has earned that, and he will be the first face of the franchise basically since Eli Manning, who he played with for 1 year. 2 years, excuse me. Getting the most out of limited cap space. This is, I think, the greatest achievement that the New York Giants have done. My buddy Mike, my co-host, you can definitely credit a lot. Yeah, absolutely. The O-line has been a massive issue over the years, and this year they have got it right. Still a work in progress. Getting the most out of limited cap space. Dave Gettleman left the Giants in ruins in terms of cap hell. One of the worst contracts given out over the course of the last couple of years, undeniably, not just for the Giants, but around the NFL, was the Kenny Golladay deal. The good news is the Giants can probably cut him a check for $6 to $7 million and avoid a bigger penalty and just move on. It has not worked out for Kenny Golladay. And quite frankly, he just doesn't fit into Brian Daboll's offense. To his credit, I think he's been buying into the team first mentality. But he is a great example of the attitude of this coaching staff. Brian Daboll will not play you just because there's pressure when you look at a contract. He will not do that. Right now, the Giants are running with Isaiah Hodgins, who was on the practice squad of the Buffalo Bills, Richie James, who was a very late pick. And I also believe that Brian Daboll's a big character guy. A failed pick on the part of previous GM Dave Gettleman was Kadarius Toney. Super talented. He's currently with Super Bowl contenders Kansas City. But basically, Daboll, Schoen made a decision, the organization made a decision to trade him because they felt that he just wasn't a team guy. And it is very rare that you would trade a talented receiver when you are depleted. Our longest tenured Giant, Sterling Shepard, tore his knee in week 3 against the Dallas Cowboys. That was our first defeat of the season. Wan'Dale Robinson, who essentially plays the same position as Shepard and was brought in to probably replace Shepard in the near future, also had a knee injury, out for the year. The Giants have literally been getting the most out of guys who don't have much of a resume. And it's been impressive. It's the system and Coach Daboll putting guys in positions to succeed. It hasn't always been pretty. And the dual threat of Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones taking it on the ground. This is another move that I think genuinely helped the team this year. Signing 2 key veterans for the immediate and distant past. The immediate past being Jalen Smith. Standout at Notre Dame. Former perennial Pro Bowler with the rival Cowboys. He had a cup of coffee with the Green Bay Packers. Didn't work out. And the Giants kind of took a flyer out on him last year in meaningless December football. Jalen played well. A controversial decision going into the season was releasing middle linebacker Blake Martinez, who didn't fit into defensive coordinator Wink Martindale's system. That move was made. Jalen replaced him, and it has been an excellent move. And I'm happy that this current coaching staff saw film of last year that saw value in bringing back Jalen. He'll never be the player he was in his Notre Dame or Dallas Cowboy days, but he is still a great leader and someone who is very valuable. The other, Landon Collins, who was controversial in terms of his departure with previous GM Dave Gettleman. Landon has come up big, and he worked his way back from the ground up as a practice squad player. Due to injuries, he got opportunities. His comeback game was a game I attended, which was actually in Jacksonville. He played in Seattle. He got demoted, and he got another opportunity, and he has maximized it. In the Giants' playoff clinching game against the Indianapolis Colts, he had a key pick 6 that really just put the Giants over. And that leads us to the games that have stood out. 9-11, first game of the year, Tennessee Titans, who a year ago were the best team in the AFC record-wise, last year's number 1 seed. Early in the game, Daniel Jones threw a silly interception, for lack of a better word. Brian Daboll lit him up verbally. And I feel that at that moment, Daboll asserted himself as a no-nonsense coach and what Giant fans and players would come to expect. The Giants hung around long enough to win the football game. Randy Bullock missed a potential game-winning field goal. And Brian Daboll took a huge chance in his first game as an NFL head coach, going for 2 for the lead that ultimately won the Giants the game. I feel that particular game put the Giants on the map and changed the immediate trajectory of where they could potentially go. Week 4, a 20-12 win over the Chicago Bears. The Bears are picking first in the NFL, so when you look at it, why is that a big deal? I'll elaborate. Giants lost both their quarterbacks that day due to injury, Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. We did not have a third active quarterback on the roster for that week. And Saquon Barkley essentially helped nurse the lead by running the Wildcat offense alongside his running back mates, Matt Breida and Gary Brightwell. To put it bluntly, given the misfortune the Giants went through that day, if this was a game played last year, the year before last year, or any time in the past few years, that's not a game the Giants win. I feel the Giants finding a way to come up with that win when having to play the majority of the second half without an actual quarterback, I think spoke volumes of the creativity and the toughness of the team and the coaching staff. The very next week, they played the defending MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and his Green Bay Packers in London. Giants were not favorites. And the pass rush towards the end of the game really got down to Rodgers. They got a lot of heat on him. Green Bay did not have the year that many expected, but I do believe that this is a game that did swing their season, talking about the Packers going backwards, the Giants going forwards. And when you look at the Packers missing the playoffs by one game, this is a key game that they can look back on. The very next week, defeating the Baltimore Ravens, another former league MVP, Lamar Jackson, coming back from 2 scores with less than 7 minutes in the game, a signature strip sack by Kayvon Thibodeau, his first career sack, swung the tide for good. Prior to that, a Julian Love interception. But that was huge. So, you're talking about the previous year, they defeated 2 1 seeds, Green Bay and Tennessee, 2 former MVPs, Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson. Huge goal line stand right in front of me where I was sitting in Jacksonville. Huge win against the eventual AFC South Jacksonville Jaguar team, who will be playing tomorrow before the Giants. But, seasons don't always have all the smoothness. There are a lot of things that set you back. The Detroit Lions, a team that a lot of people feel should have made the playoffs, punched the Giants in the mouth. In that game, the Giants also lost cornerback Adoree Jackson for the next 7 weeks due to getting injured on a punt return. The Giants were out-physicaled by the Lions in their house. At the time, the Lions did not have a good record. It was quite embarrassing. The Lions put together a winning streak that almost got them into the playoffs, and they actually eliminated Green Bay, even though they were eliminated by Seattle earlier in the day. A spirited effort on Turkey Day, but a loss to the Dallas Cowboys, NFL's highest rating game in NFL history. A 2020 frustrating tie to the Washington Commanders. I must admit, this is a game that when I saw it, thought was going to seal the Giants' fate. I thought the tie was going to come back to haunt them. The next week, in my opinion, though, is one of the 2 games that truly spun their season around. Giants were humiliated at home by the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, granted, they were down Xavier McKinney. During the bye week, Xavier McKinney had a non-football related injury riding an ATV, and he was very lucky that he was not only able to get back to play football, he could have lost fingers in the injury. He is back, fortunately, helping the Giants right now. But this was a drubbing, 48-22. This is the team we're playing tomorrow. Worst loss in quite some time for the New York Giants. Lawrence Taylor, who is the greatest Giant of all time, and in my opinion, the greatest football player of all time, called out the New York Giants after that embarrassing defeat. The next week, they were on primetime going into Washington, the team that they tied just 2 weeks earlier, and a team that had a bye to get ready. So essentially, they played the Giants 2 times in a row with a bye in between. Vantage Washington, and they were home. Spirited effort, swing point in the game, Kayvon Thibodeau strip sack to the house on Washington quarterback Taylor Heinicke. That was the signature play, the second one truly of Thibodeau's rookie season, and the Giants got an all-important victory that essentially put them ahead of Washington. Minnesota Vikings the very next week, Christmas Eve. High potent offense that the Giants hung with. Giants lost on the final play of the game, a 60-yard field goal by Greg Joseph. That could have been something that deflated the team, given that everybody they needed to lose actually did indeed lose. But the very next week, the Giants wrapped it up against the Colts. Week 18. This is a point of emphasis. Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Giants. Giants bench 19 starters in this game, but hung with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, who is an MVP candidate, did not play well. Davis Webb did not play well either for the Giants. But the Giants essentially, I think, looked at this game as, number one, we got to be healthy. And number two, you don't want to show the Eagles too much, considering that you might play them, which we are tomorrow. Why are we playing them tomorrow? The greatest game of Daniel Jones' career, that's why. Daniel Jones was on point in every facet of the game, becoming the first quarterback in NFL history in a playoff game to throw for at least 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, and rush for over 70 yards. In the history of the NFL, that has never happened before. To Minnesota's credit, they moved the ball well against us, but the Giants made the necessary stops when they had to. And an amazing stat in this game, the Giants only punted once. The Giants have only broken 30 points twice this year, against the lowly Colts and against those Minnesota Vikings who won 13 games and won the NFC North, and were the 2 seed for most of the season before dropping to the 3. Going into next season, Giants are essentially playing with house money. They have a huge, huge game in Philadelphia tomorrow. We have covered this game in a few different videos leading up. That's not what I'm doing here. What I am doing here is just acknowledging that it's been a hell of a ride for the New York Giants. And while there's absolutely no guarantee of a win tomorrow, after all, we are 7.5-point dogs, and we have not won in Philadelphia since October 27th of 2013. I will say this. I'm very proud of this team. I believe this team is going to come out swinging tomorrow. And I believe this team has a legitimate chance to upset the 1 seed since 1990, the year the Giants won the Super Bowl. They are 6-0 against 1 seeds. And the eeriness of this is that the Giants in recent time have had a propensity in the playoffs for beating teams that beat them in the regular season on their way to Super Bowls. They did it against the Dallas Cowboys, who swept them in 2007. They did it to the New England Patriots that same season, as well as the Green Bay Packers. In 2011, similar scenario. They were swept by a division rival. That division rival didn't make the playoffs. It was the Redskins. But the point to be made is the Giants were able to redeem themselves in those playoff games against teams that had beaten them during the course of the regular season. And quite frankly, the season moves along. I have a show to do, so in the event the Giants lose, I'll do a send-off for them because I have to cover the game no matter what happens tomorrow. But I just want to say that one of the most rewarding things about being a fan is seeing the process, trusting the process, seeing it through. When you're down and just going through it and finally getting back. Coach Brian Daboll will win the NFL Coach of the Year, win or lose tomorrow. And I will say this. I picked the Giants to win tomorrow, not just because they're my team, but because I actually think that no one in the NFL tournament, in the playoffs right now, believes in themselves more than these New York Giants right now. Credit to the coaching staff. Credit to GM Schoen. Credit to John Mara for getting out of the way and letting football people make football decisions, something that he was critiqued on over the years. I am proud of John for doing that. And the Giants are going to be coming into over $50 million in cap space, picking 22nd in the draft. And I say to myself, man, 10-win team, playoffs included right now, 1 win away from the NFC title game. And imagine, wait till we get some weapons. These guys have overachieved on such a level, and I am just truly proud of them. So win or lose tomorrow, and I'm addressing my Giant fans, my Giant faithful, be proud of this team because it's been quite a treat this year. My co-host, Dallas Cowboys superfan Michael Zappi, and I will be back in a little bit. We're going to speak on Doc Rivers' recent comments regarding LeBron James and Michael Jordan. We're going to speak on the NFC East and just how they have truly excelled and as a division just really been that impressive this year. And we're also going to speak on the other side of the NFL, not the glorious side. We're going to talk about the top 10 regular season teams that didn't win a Super Bowl. Got some great ones that we're going to speak on. And we're also going to speak on former Super Bowl MVP Joe Namath's comments about Aaron Rodgers coming to the Jets potentially and how he would be okay if Rodgers were to come over wearing his number 12. It happened before in Seattle when the great Steve Largent granted the great Jerry Rice permission to wear the number 80. Two great receivers, hell of a gesture. Yeah, let's go, G-Man. Tomorrow's the day. Great day to break a streak. Tell you that. Until next time, I am Richie, and next time we'll be in roughly 30 to 40 minutes. Have a great night, everyone. I am out.